Good morning! I am here today checking in live because I'm going to make a loaf of bread and I thought I would share with you the process. I'm going to make it's my recipe, and this is, do you remember the loaf I posted the other day, the round one? And it was amazing, and it's actually baked in one of these Dutch ovens. So I'll show you how that goes. What I'm going to make is a rustic loaf, and I started with a poulish, which I want to keep these videos very friendly, like user friendly. Don't be scared off when I use that term. All it is a mix of flour and water and a tiny bit of yeast that you let sit in the fridge for a day. Great. For a day or two. So what I did, I made this a couple days ago, and I let it sit on the counter for a few hours, and then I cover it, put it in the fridge, and it ferments and gets all bubbly, and it just makes the bread, it elevates the flavor. It gives the enzymes time to work, and it makes the bread taste really good. So I'm using 1 cup of the poulish, and the rest of it I put in the freezer. So I've got in my bowl already a cup of the poulish. You can see it's like really runny. I got it warmed up this morning. So I'm going to start the bread with my paddle, and all of this can be done by hand. So if you don't have a mixer, you don't have to worry. You can mix it with your hands and then just knead it. And I'll show you a little bit of kneading later on in the process if you want. It's super easy. So I'm going to start with the paddle, and I'm going to start by adding in the water. So I'm adding in 1.25 cups of water between 90 and 100 degrees, but when you stick your finger in, it just feels barely warm. So I'm going to add that in. And I've got a little more than that. And then I've measured out about 17 ounces of flour, but I'm just going to start by adding a couple of cups in at the moment, just to get things rolling. And I'm going to add in the yeast, which is just a teaspoon of yeast. And this is the kind of yeast you can add right into the flour. You don't have to proof it ahead of time, and just a teaspoon, all you need. And I'm adding in salt. I'm going to just start this on low. Woo! Don't do that. This mixer is old and it sprays a bit. I can't control it down to low, so there you go. There's an amateur mistake. Anyway, there we go. So I'm going to mix that, there we go. So we want to add salt. So I'm using just table salt today, just because everybody has it. I don't want to turn people away. So it's about 1.5 teaspoons of table salt. And a couple tablespoons of olive oil. Like a true rustic bread, like French bread and baguettes and stuff, often have no oil, but I just like a little bit in there. It just tenderizes it a little bit, and I find it just stays fresher longer. Okay, so I'm gonna let that go for a minute. I'm going to add a little more flour, slowly, so I don't make another big mass. Okay, so I'm just going to take it off and just show you. So now I've just sort of mixed it so it's starting to smooth out, and I'm going to put the dough hook on now. And then I'll keep adding flour until it starts to leave the sides of the bowl and starts to form a nice dough. And I'll keep adding flour as required, trying not to make a mess. I do have another mixer, a different style, and but I don't want to use that because nobody will have it. So I'm just going to keep adding flour slowly. I'm going to stop this now and just show you how it looks. When I say it's been pulling away from the side of the bowl, you can see the edges are all starting to get clean right there. And it's got a ways to go, and it definitely needs more flour. So I'm going to add more flour in. Because the reason I know it needs more flour is when I stopped it, it just all slumped down to the bottom of the bowl. So that it's not got enough oomph to hold there yet. So I'm going to add flour in. What I'm going to do is let that go for another minute, and then I'm going to dump it out. And I'm going to knead the rest of the flour in for a couple of reasons today, just because my mixer is giving me a little trouble, because it won't go slow enough for me to add it in without making a mess. And secondly, it's really good for you to see how I knead it and how you can do it if you don't have a mixer and what it would look like. So it's definitely still needs lots more flour, but because this is sort of actually even smelling a little funny, so I'm going to just finish it up on the counter. I've still got flour left, and I'm going to grab my handy dandy Matfer tool and just take this right off that. Okay, a little bowl scraper, and it's coming together nicely. See, it's starting to take shape. And I'll just give you a little quick rundown on the kneading. So don't be afraid. Obviously, we're adding flour. We want to incorporate flour, unlike the pizza dough where we want to use oil and we wanted to not put too much flour in. When you're kneading, basically it's about turning the dough and working in the flour. So make sure your hands are floured, and you're pulling up the dough and pushing with the heels of your hand, and turning and pushing, turning, pushing, turning, pushing, turning, pushing. That's it. So it goes very nicely, and it becomes, eventually you'll see I'll start to get all this flour incorporated, and take nice shape. See that it's starting to, see all the flour is starting to go off the counter now. And at the beginning, when I was first starting to knead it, the dough was feeling like separate, like there was the big flat piece of dough and it's like there were layers. Where now, instead of feeling like that, it's starting to feel like one cohesive, smooth ball. And you want keep going here. A bit more flour. It's getting near the end of needing more flour, I think. And you just want to just keep going. And this is a pretty, basic dough. You could make it into rustic buns. A little more flour. See, it's still sticking a bit to the counter. So I'll just add a bit more. You could shape it into separate buns. I'm doing a boule because I just want to show you how cool it is when you make it in the Dutch oven. You could shape it into baguette shapes. It's pretty versatile. So it's a good one to learn. And with the poolish added, it just really elevates the taste of the bread. It doesn't just taste, I don't know, like just yeasty white bread. It actually has a little bit of depth of flavor. So there, it's feeling really nice and smooth. And it almost forms, I don't even want to use the word, a skin. It doesn't form a skin, but it's just very, very smooth. And you can sort of see little bubbles even sort of starting there. Still a little sticky. I'm going to add a little more flour. See that? See, a little bit sticky. So just a bit more and just keep going. And you know, like when you add flour and then once you get it all in, and then it starts to stick on the counter, you know it needs a little bit more. I may have to buy a new mixer. Or I guess I could borrow Emmy's next door. I'm thinking in next week maybe, I'll invite Emmy on and we'll do she'll make something, show us from her Wagyu kitchen, her little food business that she'd like to get going. I'll have her on and we can make something, you know, some dumplings, or she can show us how to make okonomiyaki maybe one night. We do it at dinner time. Okonomiyaki is a really cool Japanese cabbage pancake with shrimp and bacon. It's so good. And it's one of my favorite things that she makes. And I even asked for it for my birthday dinner. So, okay, so this is feeling really good. And I mean, there is a slight, ever so slightly bit of tacky feeling, but not too much. And I think it's done. And you can see how nice and smooth that is. And really not, I'm not sticking to it anymore. So what I'm gonna do is put it into a bowl to rise. And I use just cooking spray in the bowl, just to keep it from sticking. And I just rub the dough around and, you know, make sure it's a nice little tight ball. I'll cover it with saran. And then that is going to rest somewhere warm. Like, you don't want to put it in a drafty place. Sometimes I turn my under counter lights and I just sit it on the counter. Sometimes people will put it in their oven just with the pilot light on, like with the oven light on, not the pilot light, the oven light. And it's a nice draft-free place if your house is drafty. I'm always nervous doing that I'll forget that it's in there and turn the oven on for some other reason, because I'm a little absent-minded like that sometimes. So I recommend just, you know, or on top of your fridge if you have space. That's a nice warm place. So anyway, so we're gonna let that sit probably for a couple of hours. Hi guys, I'm back. So it's been a couple of hours and the dough has risen, and now I'm going to show you what we do to prepare for baking the dough. So you can see how you tell if your dough is ready to bake. You press your fingers gently into the top of the dough, and if the two finger marks stay there, it means it's ready to shape. If that popped right back up, let it rise a little bit longer until you do that and they stay in there. Okay, so I'm preheating the oven to 450 degrees. And for this bread, we're going to bake it in my Le Creuset Dutch oven here. Now, In case you're wondering, my Le Creuset is oven safe, but I have read that sometimes the knobs that come on it aren't maybe great for higher than 400 degrees. So because we're baking at 450, I just take some foil and cover the knob. They also say you can write the company and they'll send you one that's metal one, or you can just buy a knob of some metal type at the store. But mine just covered up, so it's safe for the oven. And just put the lid on it, and we're going to put it in the oven and let it heat. Once the oven reaches 450, I'll put it in, and I could maybe wait half an hour, because this is probably, once it's shaped, going to rise for about an hour. And probably this heating up for half an hour is enough. So, but make sure that you heat it up so it's screaming hot before you put your dough into it. So in a half an hour, I will put that pot in the 450 degree oven and let it get hot. So what we're gonna do is just take a little bit of flour. Oh, and by the way, I did fix my mixer. There was a screw loose, so it wouldn't go on low. So I shouldn't have any mishaps going forward. So, out comes the dough. And we are just going to just give it a quick little knead. Shape it into a nice tight ball, like that. Can you see that? And I actually kind of like a little bit of flour on top. And then what I have here is a bowl, a piece of parchment. So you see, like, if it was just left sitting there, it might have a tendency to do that a bit, where if you put it in a bowl, it just might encourage the dough upwards a bit. So I just have any bowl, but this is a pretty good size for this piece of dough. Piece of parchment. And just slide her in there, like that. So this parchment acts as a sling, as well as the liner for the pot when it comes out of the oven. So this is going to rise for about an hour-ish. It's always a bit up in the air how long it's going to take depending on your kitchen. It's all ready to go in the oven. I poked it, and you can see those are staying pretty well down. And I am just going to score the bread with my, I have a special lame for doing that. But you can use just a sharp knife or something that lets you cut the dough. So I'll just do one nice cut there. And you want to go fairly deep, like half an inch. Okay, so that's what it looks like with the cuts. All right, so I'm going to take the pot out of the oven and show you putting it in the oven. Drop that right in the pot like that. Lid on. Back in. There we go. So I'm just going to show you the bread as it comes out. So if you happen to have a thermometer, it's great to cook these rustic breads to between 205 and 210. So I'll check the temperature. I'll take it out, put it up here so you can see it, and we'll take the temperature. If you don't have a thermometer, just I'll show you what to do. double check. So, yep, 209, perfect. So if you can see that, 209. So, yeah, so the bread is done. If you don't have a thermometer, just should sound hollow. Okay. There you go. Beautiful loaf of rustic bread. Better than anything you'll find at most local bakeries. Anyways, it's fun, it's easy. If you try it, let me know in the comments how it goes. And yeah, we'll let that cool and enjoy it tonight.